Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Jersey First TV. So excited to have everyone with us tonight. We have such an important issue to talk about. And as Jersey First, we focus on the things that matter to the state, to our businesses, to our families. And many of you probably know that May is Military Appreciation Month. So it is a perfect time for us to have on some incredible veterans, people that really care about this country, about their fellow vets. And I want to welcome Alexa, Brett, Marcela, and Nick. Welcome to Jersey First TV.
Hi, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Each of you has so much to share and so much to offer us. So before we kind of get into all the issues that are facing our vets and the things we need to talk about, it's important for our audience to know who each of you are and what your background is. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Marcela, if you could introduce yourself to us.
Hi, everybody. Marcela Crossman. I'm a board member at Jersey First, and I'm a former Marine. I served as an admin clerk, HR for civilian world in 1996 to 2003, and did get activated in Operation Enduring Freedom. And that's pretty much it.
That's great. Okay, Marcela, thank you. Nick.
Yeah, I'm Nick De Gregorio. I served 9 years in the Marine Corps in the wake of 9/11, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan as an infantry officer, and enjoyed my time and decided to come home. I grew up here in North Jersey in Bergen County, and have 2 small children and a wife, and we're living the suburban life that we've always wanted to live. And I spend my time these days doing my best to create some sort of systemic, strategic change in the political world to try to get veterans and veteran advocates elected to office here in New Jersey.
Excellent. We have a lot to talk about with that. Our only non-vet, Alexa, but you might as well be crowned almost one. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm outnumbered here with 3 Marines, but I'm Alexa Modero. I am spouse to Brett, so I guess affiliate of the Marines, if you will. I'm the executive director of Backpacks for Life. We're a nonprofit based in Jersey City, New Jersey, and we serve the homeless and at-risk veteran community. We've been doing it for about 6 years now. So that's me.
Excellent. Okay. So Brett, tell us about your background, your service, and then we're going to get into Backpacks for Life.
Yes, I'm Brett D'Alessandro. I'm fortunate and lucky to be engaged to Alexa Modero. We've been running Backpacks for Life for over 6 years now, like Alexa had mentioned. Basically, just Backpacks for Life stemmed from when my integration back from my deployment to Afghanistan, and I had a hard time integrating back. I was lost. I was really lost, and I lost my purpose, and stumbled upon a homeless veteran that needed some help. Ended up giving him a backpack. It's symbolic as a mobile home for veterans who are homeless, and I found my calling again, and I just wanted to make sure other veterans who might not have access to care are able to get that access in a quick and appropriate way. So Alexa and I just started giving out backpacks to homeless and at-risk veterans, and just anybody who just needs somebody to talk with. And we really love it. It's something I truly love. It's more than the weight of gold to me, and we've given out quite a few backpacks over the years.
It's such an incredible idea and really such a simple solution, but so profound. How has the backpack evolved? Tell people about what's actually in it. And I know you've got somebody who's, spent time designing. It's very purposeful. Tell that story.
So, Alex, I'll hit this one because it's pretty funny. So we did a crowdfunding, first initiative way to get seed funding. And we got these backpacks. They were neon green, basically an upgraded toilet paper. We gave out them at a stand-down event up in Rhode Island. And I would say every backpack broke. We literally handed them to the vet while they grabbed them. The straps broke. It was a total disaster, but it was a starting point. And from there, we really, after working with thousands of homeless vets throughout the U.S., we saw exactly what they needed to survive and get off the streets. So we literally took all the feedback with working with these vets and constructed a backpack, and just going to events and traveling around the U.S., learning about different kinds of fabrics. Alexa had some background with through her college experience with knowing how to source and deal with the stuff in the textile industry. We ended up creating this backpack using majority of U.S. source materials. have a factory down in Boone, North Carolina, and also a factory in Passaic, New Jersey, where we've been making some of these backpacks. And 2 months ago, we actually had it. It's officially patented. It was no longer patent pending, officially patented, which that was really cool. And it has a locking cable on it, so vets can lock it to their bedpost if they're at a shelter, so nobody can steal the backpack. It has a little iso mat, like a yoga mat. They could pop out, lay on the ground, prevent hypothermia, reflective material inside the backpack, along the outside of the backpack, so they could be seen at night. Whistle clip on the back. All these really cool features, a detachable toiletry kit, and it's basically something that they could put all their belongings in. It's basically their mobile home, like I said before. So it's been a pleasure giving out over 7,000 backpacks and worked with over about 500 homeless veterans and about 1,000 veterans in total.
Wow, that's amazing. We're going to get back to that when we talk about the homelessness issue, but I have to tell you guys, it's so impressive. I went to the website and saw how amazing this backpack is, how life-changing it could be. It's something that doesn't occur to other people, but you have done an excellent job, and I want to come back to that as we talk about the homelessness issue and some other things like that. But basically tonight, we want to address I believe it's, Nick, you might have shared 3.9% of the New Jersey population are veterans, and a lot of the issues that they face and how we can solve those issues, address those issues by, really 3 different ways. We have political solutions that need to be put in place, as we always do, community things that each of us can do, and of course there are the nonprofits. So each of you brings so much to bear in discussing all of that. I want to start with really the issue of transition. And this is something that I think civilians take for granted, which is what happens to a vet transitioning from service to civilian life. And Nick, I'm going to start with you on that. I want you to share your personal experience of the challenges of the transition.
Yeah, sure. So after 9 years in the Marines, my last deployment was in Afghanistan, and it was an extremely, we say, kinetic deployment. It was a very tough deployment. We really couldn't move more than a few miles outside of our base until we were being attacked and fighting for our lives. And I think reports said that we were in somewhere like 40 to 50 fights in the course of the 10 months that I was there. And so it was really hard. And you come home, and what do you do with that, right? And how many people are around, especially with 3.9% of residents being from New Jersey, being veterans, there's not a lot of folks to talk to. And of course, you do try your best and you find your organizations. VFW has been a great organization. But I think for me, the great thing was using the GI Bill and going back to school. And I was able to do that. I went to Georgetown University, which has a really phenomenal veterans program. And so we had a lot of really close-knit relationships, and we were able to sort of talk things out. But I do remember having a lot of trouble in sort of compartmentalizing the issues that I dealt with in the Marine Corps versus what civilian life is like. And the stakes just aren't as high in civilian life. But you have trouble divorcing those high stakes environments from your regular life when you get home. And so I remember not doing well on a quiz, my first quiz that I took in school, and feeling like I had failed my Marines and feeling like I had failed myself. Almost like, it's something that they tell you in boot camp and beyond. If you fail, you could get somebody killed, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the mentality that I brought to literally everything. And that's a really bad mentality to maintain if you're trying to get by and the stakes are just not as high as they once were. So it took some time and a lot of brotherhood and camaraderie with fellow veterans to sort of get myself back on pace. And thankfully, I was able to do that. I think everybody comes home with some sort of post-traumatic stress. I think I was very lucky in that mine was sort of solvable, if you will, just by, with the camaraderie and talking to others. I think for a lot of other folks, it's going to take a lot more than that. But I think really the key is togetherness, right? And finding one another and admitting that it's okay to have a problem.
Yeah, right. Marcela, you have your own unique experiences. Can you share that with us? But also, what do you think is missing in terms of what we offer as a country for transition support to our vets?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think I'm going to follow Nick, right? The transition and the fact that you actually have an issue, but you didn't know. And looking back, I did feel a hole, empty, confused, didn't know why. I was excited to come home with my family and friends, but I couldn't fit in. Then I thought, I felt like I was overreactive to Nick's point. Everything, it's a life or death situation when we're in, and then we feel a little bit arrogant at one point, and so you kind of go back to your hole because you have no one can understand why you're so passionate about something simple. And but I didn't recognize that, right? I recognized that years later, looking back and understanding, which is why we're here.
Yeah.
That transition period is so difficult. And then when I got out, which is interesting because my job was to be an administrative clerk. My job was to process their paperwork, their GI bills, their life insurance. And I struggled to transition out. I didn't have the resources. I didn't know where to go. I didn't even know any of this existed. The VA loan, the VA, I knew there was a GI Bill because I signed the paperwork. I still haven't used it. And that's bad, right? And so you feel alone and that disconnect. And I think the problem is that there is no transition. It isn't organized the way we like it. So as military people, we like the structure, we like the discipline. We need to be told where to go, how to go, when to go, right? And then it's still like I've been out since 2003, and I'm still like that in some cases.
Wow.
I look to my boss to still tell me, but I don't understand, right? It's just something that's ingrained in us. We don't have that when we leave, and I think that's what we're missing. And so, like Brett and Alexa, now at least we have folks like Brett who understood and did something. Alexa, same thing, right? And then made a change, but no support. You're on your own. Because you're such a great human, you did that. But the government doesn't help us. We don't know, and then we don't know where to go. And I think that's where we're here. That's why we're starting this Veterans Coalition. That's why we want to make everybody aware that there's an issue, but that you can help. And then Jersey First is exactly that. Where to go? Come to us. If you want to volunteer, if you're interested in running for something, if you understand how to read the law and push to change, come to us, right? We can help and push along. And, my focus is to make sure that we get our veteran channel in front of the right people.
So really what I'm hearing you say is the transition is dual challenges, which is the emotional transition, the psychological transition, but also the ability to really know what's available in terms of resources and have access to them and know how to get them, and somebody who's walking you through that. And it's just not happening, which by the way, I find amazing after so many decades of us having veterans issues that we still haven't solved this. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But Brett, you're sort of like the freshest one, I think, off of transition, or maybe you're still transitioning. It's hard to know, I guess, where you're at, but share with us your unique experience. And also now with COVID, how has that been harder for vets?
It's isolation. It's really, there's over 43,000 veteran service organizations alone, not to even talk about, or not to mention the for-profit companies helping out and these government programs out there. But it's the isolation. I mean, all these programs, everything I've seen, the most beneficial thing for a veteran is peer-to-peer mentorship. I mean, I'm part of AA and NA. Coming back, it was hell. It literally, ironically, probably was one of the hardest parts of my deployment, is coming back home. I still deal with it today. Now, people, I don't want to tell any vets like, oh no, there's no way to get better. There is, but it's something that's ongoing. It's a lot easier now than when it was. But I had to go to military rehabs. I went to hospitals. Like, I thought I was the sergeant in the Marines, and I was this weak person who failed my Marines because I was feeling like this. I couldn't even go get a haircut without having a mental breakdown. I'm like, how am I a man, or how am I a Marine that can do this? So like lead these people in Afghanistan, but I come home and I'm completely broken. And it really, it took a lot. I think I was I know I was extremely lucky and fortunate to have Alexa in my family, and even jokingly they say my dog. But other people, when they come home, they don't have these luxuries like I do, and I will never take that for granted, because a lot of veterans, they come home to nothing, or to a broken family, or and they're just striving to have a purpose in life. And that's kind of where I just tell people my story and let them know, like, it is okay. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength. It's like going to college to get better. You're going to these programs to learn things, to get your mental health better. You work on your muscles. Why not work on your brain? So it shouldn't be taboo, or, it should be in the corner and like a shadow to ask for help. It's totally fine. People go through it every day. I bet you $1 million every family has dealt with some kind of mental health issue, and it shouldn't be something that you should hide. But
Right.
I tell people all the time, when I want to hire people for a nonprofit or other businesses that we work with, if somebody came to me and was like, hey, I've been clean and sober for 8 years, I'm like, I don't even care what your background is. I'm hiring you because I know how hard you have to persevere through that, and how it's literally hell to go through that. So if you can go through that, and also really humbles yourself as well.
Yeah.
That it's you basically are very open and vulnerable, and to allow you to talk about it, I'm like, that's a strong person in my mind.
Yeah, that says something about your character. I agree with you. So, Alexa, as we're going to call you the spouse in this experience, right? That's a unique point of view. Give us an idea of what this is like from your standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brett and I often use this metaphor of when you're working with a veteran who's maybe struggling in an at-risk scenario. You think of a house that's burnt down, you don't just build one side, or you don't just call a plumber, right? You need your contractors, you need every piece of infrastructure. So our motto is very much, when a house burns down, you don't just build up one side, you have to think about the whole thing. And that's thinking about that family unit or that support system that's in place for a veteran, whether it's family or friends, and making sure that they're well equipped and they're well educated on what programs are available to that veteran to make that transition just a little bit easier.
Yeah.
For Brett and myself, we had started dating at such a young age, and we were in college when Brett returned. So for me, it was a really challenging period where I was just so undereducated on everything and didn't really know where to help Brett steer his ship and guide him. So that's something we really practice in the work that we do, is making sure that our family members are well equipped and they know what programs and resources are available to them.
Absolutely. So, in talking about the transition, and you guys have painted a picture of really quite a challenge, it leads to the next issue, which is what, as a nation, we're facing such high suicide rates. 1 out of every 5 suicides is a veteran, which is just heartbreaking and unacceptable. And I'm not sure that we've been successful at really addressing that. Nick, when you look and you hear those numbers and you look at the reality of that, and I'm sure personal stories, looking at our government and how we handle things from the VA, how can we better address these mental health challenges with these vets so that they aren't at risk for suicide in such a large degree?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was a silver bullet answer, and that there was one thing that I could say here, and that we would end the 22 suicides a day that veterans sustain. Unfortunately, that's not the answer, but I think there are ways to go about making it better, right? Threat mitigation is a term that we use a lot in the military. For me, I think I look at the decentralization of the VA over the last 4 years through the VA Mission Act, which basically has enabled the private sector to sort of get involved with some of the VA patients who are lacking resources, right? The VA is inundated. No, that's no secret. It has been since its inception. And so the VA Mission Act in 2018 sort of came to a consensus that the answer to this is probably letting doctors out in town look at some of these folks, right? Because if they can't get an appointment in the VA, if they live too far away from a VA, then they should have an option to be treated, because what's the alternative here, right? And that goes back to our suicide question. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that these guys signed a contract, and men and women, I don't mean to gender it, they signed a contract and they were promised X, Y, and Z in return for the possibility that they would give their life for their country. And then they come home and they come to find out that contract's not being honored on the other end. And so I think the Mission Act goes a long way in ensuring that we get to the place where we should be, where we're providing our veterans the basic things that they were told they would get. But I think when I look at the Mission Act, I do worry about the funding for the VA. And every time there's a new budget that gets passed, a large sum of money needs to be given to the VA in order for the Mission Act to succeed. And so what happens one day when we decide that we need to slash the budget, right? That's a huge concern. All of a sudden, these individuals who have had the opportunity to go see people are now going to be denied that opportunity if this program doesn't exist. And so that, to me, is probably the most important of the issues that I see in the near term. And I think it's definitely a conversation that we should be pushing forth to our members of Congress who are in charge right now.
So it seems as though the way we treat veterans is based on the administration that's in the White House, based on who's controlling Congress, based on budgets. It seems as though this country hasn't permanently committed itself to, a deep service of veterans consistently. I, for one, have heard this issue my entire life, and I think I shared with that you before, Nick. Is I don't understand how decades later we still don't seem to have the solutions, and it still seems as though the politicians can't be committed to to the vets in a way that doesn't change every 4 years.
Right.
I think this is a systemic problem, right? And it isn't even just veterans. It really comes down to these omnibus budgets, right?
Right.
Every single time we go into sequester, that's another period of time where the Secretary of Defense, the Defense Department, and every organization within the government now has to say, well, we don't know where we're going to get our funding for X period of time. We can't budget out. We can't plan things out over the next 1 year, let alone the next 10 years, which is really what we should be doing as a government.
Right.
And so it kills us. It kills us as a society. And of course, I think the veterans burden we see because we are veterans, and we see that acutely every day because it's our friends. But I think it's the symptom of a much larger disease that we're dealing with right now in the government.
Yeah, definitely. Marcela, when it comes to the suicide rate, mental illness, there's also the issue of a high rate of disabilities that vets have to deal with. Do they have a harder time getting services than just a civilian does with these same issues? Shouldn't it be easier in some ways for them? Why does it seem like it's more of a challenge?
Right. And like I mentioned before, because there's no resources, there's no book to go, there's no guidelines. To Nick's point, there's no set agenda or budget that we can go and see, especially for the folks who are struggling, because what we do, to all the guys' points, is we're heroes. Like, you're right. We walk into a room and we command Marines. We command, we're the world's 911 force, at least in our little bubble of the three of us in the Marine Corps. And so when we're outside of that, we walk into a room and like no one's looking at you. No one cares who you are. You're wearing all your nice paraphernalia and you're showing off and then you're afraid to speak. You don't know how to act because you're not supposed to ask. You're supposed to protect. You're supposed to have all the answers. And so again, and I guess I'm going back to the transition process.
Yeah,
it's just not there, and then it starts to snowball into a situation where you can't get out of. Right. And so I think we need to make it, a permanent solution, right? Have specific guidelines, like minimums, make it a part of the program of discharging. So, we all know that we're going to get discharged 6 months in advance, 3 months in advance. Everybody knows, the DOD, the whole world knows. And so why can't we, as that plan, put it in, have a program, a training program, transitioning out, right? We can do that. The government can do that. And just to mention in terms of the budget, right, it's common sense. So Nick, you used big words, right? Because my kids are watching it. They're 10, right? They don't understand about Congress and budgets, and sometimes I don't understand. But it's common sense.
Sometimes I don't either.
We're protecting, right? The military is protecting our freedom. The reason why we can do this, why Facebook's there, everything that we do, the school, the fact that we can go in there with zero care, that's what we're doing. And they can't think of giving us money, putting us at the top of the list and make sure that we get the right equipment, right? And not that this is a Marine Corps thing, but just I can't help myself. Back to that, we get leftovers, right? There's a hierarchy, like the Air Force gets the best, so and we're at the bottom of the list, and we're the first ones there. So it's just common sense. Why don't we apply common sense to where it should be?
It sure does seem like common sense. I'm just frustrated that we haven't solved this. I know that you guys will help us do that. And all these issues we talk about, of course, impact unemployment, right? Impact job opportunities for vets. They have twice the national average unemployment. So Brett, let's talk about unemployment. I mean, how hard is it? You come back, you have some level of PTSD. Maybe someone has a disability. They don't know what they're going to do next. They haven't dealt with the transition issues. And now you're trying to find a job. It's not obvious to civilians that your incredible training translates, although it should. Brett, what do we do about this unemployment rate?
So I guess the first thing is a simple one as like a resume where you have this MOS, military occupation station, your job, and it's basically trying to go from like English or Mandarin to English or Spanish to English. It's
Sure.
like, it's hard and somebody might not understand these words that you use. So I think that's one kind of component is letting people understand and spreading that awareness. Like for us, for a nonprofit, we tried to go outside the veteran community and let other people aware of these issues and amazing things that veterans could bring to the community, and kind of letting them know and kind of having them understand what these words are, or what their job, and how can it branch over into the civilian world. Another one, just this is again my just personal opinion. I think sometimes people have a negative connotation with PTSD. Personally, I think it just be post-traumatic stress, because a disorder is something where unnatural, and if you see one of your soul, your friends, Marines, brothers, sisters, soldiers get shot or get killed, and you don't come home, and you come home and just like, oh, I'm gonna go to the grocery store and have a great time. That's odd. But if you come home and have some kind of stress or from a traumatic experience, that's normal. That's a normal bodily function. So to say it's a disorder is something unnatural. So I think using, and I know it's like, oh, change the word. No, but changing words really do have an impact. So I think really changing the narrative, changing these words and the words of how people describe and try to understand the veteran, and just kind of changing that really might help change the narrative a little bit and make it a little more easier for vets to integrate into the civilian world, I call it. But it's also like going from like, I love using analogies, but it's like just waking up one day and you're in another country and nobody speaks English and you're like, what is going on? That's stressful. So that's kind of how it might feel if somebody wants to, kind of put a little comparison into it where somebody might be able to understand. So that was just a little quick.
I think that's great, Brett. I think that's very helpful, and these are things that we need to be sensitive to for good reason. I think, Alexa, when you basically started a business with Brett. I mean, that's what you did. So in working with him, you see his talents and his training. Does he have a hard time? Would he have a hard time articulating the gifts that he has and the talents to somebody who's never been in the military? Can you see us trying to help veterans be able to speak about, communicate with others what gifts and talents that they have, and special things that they've developed over time? Because we don't use the same words. And I think you've all said that, right? We speak differently. So if I'm interviewing you, Brett, and you speak a certain way, I'm not going to necessarily understand. But Alexa, I'm sure you've seen his brilliance and his capabilities, and you would be able to translate that to the way civilians speak.
Absolutely. And, there are a handful of programs that I think we should nod to that are doing some great work to help veterans translate what it is they did in their MOS, like Brett mentioned, into civilian lingo and a civilian job. There's a great group we work with that helps veterans with that transition and correlating what is this role and what rank was I and how does that correlate to a leadership position? Because at the end of the day, when you come back from deployment, like, you served as a leader. You're fit for more than an entry-level position. So, there are a ton of great groups that are starting to do that and help veterans with that transition. And speaking of Brett and what he's capable of, something that we're kind of at the crossroads of is entrepreneurship. And that is something I don't think that many veterans explore as an option. They just think, I need to come home and go to a 9-to-5 job and make money. But entrepreneurship really opens the door to leading to small businesses and startups. And there's tons of great programs, both government and independent, that help veterans explore the concepts of opening their own business, because that's what Brett and I did. And, it's a viable option for veterans who want to be change makers and be leaders and be at the forefront of creating new ideas.
Absolutely. And it just seems with the experience that you get, the leadership, it's just so much about a vet that's so incredibly valuable. And I think civilians need to be better informed about that as well. So let's talk about, like, one of our last issues here as we start to wrap up, but it's really a huge issue. And it's one of the reasons Backpacks for Life exists, is the homelessness issue. It's something that has been with us for decades. Nick, it's another thing that we haven't addressed well from Washington or even from our state government is the homelessness issue. Obviously, it's a culmination of things, isn't it, Nick? You don't just come back and you're immediately homeless. What happens? What are the steps that happen, you know, that suddenly a vet finds himself homeless? Because I don't think civilians see it quite correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'll start by saying that in North Jersey, we actually have what we call net zero or functional zero homelessness, and that's in Bergen County, and that's an incredible accomplishment. What that means is that in a year in, year out basis, there are no homeless people on the street. That doesn't mean that on a daily basis there's not a homeless veteran that still needs your help. And there are tons of veterans in North Jersey who are in dire need of that assistance. And there are plenty of organizations that are in this area. Operation Chill Out is a good one. I think they're more like Sussex County area. That's a fantastic organization. But I would say that just because we've reached these fantastic thresholds of functional zero homelessness doesn't mean that our job is over, right? This is a thing that we've got to perpetuate on a daily basis to me. And that's what I think Brett does so well. And Alexa, what you guys do so well, you're in the trenches. You're the ones who are affecting boots on the ground change on a daily basis. I'm just the guy in the clouds right now trying to, get better leadership. But at the end of the day, you're the ones who are making it all happen. And I think, I'll give you a virtual round of applause at the end of this thing. I'll buy you a beer.
Yeah, they deserve it.
It's a team effort.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Marcela, when we talk about the transition, the reality is a lot of veterans pay more than half of their income in rent alone, which indicates that they're not finding the jobs that fit their skill sets, or that they can actually earn a wage that they can actually, a living wage or a wage that allows them to build a life. So shouldn't this be part of the transition, is to be able, why wouldn't these vets have the same kind of well-paying jobs that civilians do?
Right. That's a great point and a good question that, quite frankly, you gave me another to-do list, right? to put on the to-do list.
Yeah.
I think there should be there should be a stipend, if you will, for lack of better words, that we should be awarding to our Marines. There's, your Walmart gives you your 10% discount and Geico gives whatever, right? But it should be a lot more. And again, but it still goes back to the same thing I said earlier. There is no structure. There's no guidebook. There's no transition. There's not one, checklist that we need to do, that we need to give the Marines. And then there's no one pushing out there and partnering with these other organizations, big corporations. To Brett's point, they are doing things on their own, but no one's gluing it together so that we can help, especially for those who don't know how to ask for help. And that's the hard part. We've been fortunate so far that we've asked for help, which is why we're here, right? Yeah. But we got to get to the guys who are afraid, or the girls, right? Because there's many reasons why we don't ask for help. We're embarrassed, where something happened to you and then you think you're worthless. We just need to figure out how to package that up, right? And go in front of Congress or whatever, government body to make this part of the day-to-day in terms of getting our guys out.
Marcela, I just want to ask you one more thing too, because you brought this up once before, which is about education and getting college credit for your military experience. I think that's another important idea. How does that work right now? Do vets get any college credit for what they've done?
Right. Good point. And thanks for reminding. So we should. And the thing is, it's not known. And it's not a discipline. It's not in place. So yeah. Our educations, we go through becoming a leader, right? Corporal's course, sergeant's course, all, and we have an officer here. So you have even fancier education. And so we need to learn how to take all that and package it so that when you leave out of the Marine Corps or the Army, you're walking out with an associate's degree, or close to a bachelor's, based on being motor T, the guys who drive the cars, right? Easily switch over to your regular license to the commercial driver's license, all that good stuff. So that gives you a step up in there. And the thing is, it's not well known, and we need to make it well known for our folks that
I love it.
That are coming out there. Right. And just one last thing. One of the things we want to do here, at least in New Jersey, is there's a university who actually has a program to take all our education, take all our training programs and package it and help us convert those to credits so that we can get closer to that associate or bachelor's. So, but what we want to do is make it every university, not one, just because they chose to do it. Right. So that's one of the things we want to look into.
I love it. I love that idea. I know Jersey First is going to champion that. Brett and Alexa, tell people, we're going to start to wrap up here, how they can find out more about Backpacks for Life. And you also have Roger. It's called Roger dot, what is it? .net?
Vet.
Of course it's .vet. Roger.vet, which helps people find all the services. Let's not forget that you've been able to organize, because it's not as though these services don't exist, as you guys have each pointed out. It's that some of them don't, but many do, and it's hard to find them, nonprofit as well as government services. So Brett and Alexa, how do people get involved with what you're doing? Tell them where to go for more information.
Absolutely. So you can follow us. We're all over social media, Backpacks for Life, and our website is backpacksforlife.org. And like you just mentioned, Elizabeth, most recently, we launched Roger, which is an online search platform for the New Jersey veteran community. And we did exactly what we've been talking about, is all these things exist in the world, but no one's really connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. What we've done is created a centralized platform for New Jersey veterans to go online, put in things like their zip code, their branch of service, how they were discharged, and look through some categories of things they might be looking for, whether it's employment or just recreational groups. But that's going to be over at our other website, which is roger.vet. And there you can poke around, find resources, programs, employment. It was something that was a long time coming, and a lot of people in the state were saying, we need this. And we said, all right, you know what, we'll build it. So now it's here.
I love it. I love it. Brett, can you just share with people one thing they can do besides, I guess, helping Backpacks for Life? They can contribute, right? They can donate to you. What else, just as we start to close up here, what's something else that someone who doesn't have a lot of experience with vets, but their heart is moved by this interview, what can they do?
I always say water, food, and resources. I could talk for a little while, but I'll just keep it short as don't give somebody money. You don't know what they're dealing with, especially if it's something, drugs and alcohol. If they really need it, take the time to go with them. Go with them and get them maybe a prepaid cell phone or a bus ticket or some food or water, or ask us and we'll give you some resources to give to them. When we work with a homeless vet, kind of what was Marcel was saying, we work with a homeless vet. I don't say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for you. I sit down with them, I listen to their story, and I help cater a roadmap for them, because every veteran is different. Every veteran has a different scenario and situation that they're dealing with. So why would you tell them what they need? How about we open up our ears and ask them, what do you need? What do you need help with? I think that is something that we kind of don't really utilize, and it's probably like no doubt, that's so simple, but somehow we don't really go down that path. So that's something, just ask. I mean, how do you know if you don't ask?
And the thank you letters.
Oh man, those letters. When I used to get these letters from the kids, I still have them. They're hysterical. But those things, it's not just a backpack. It's symbolic, as when you give them something, they're like, oh, they gave me this. They might think they associate with their self-worth. So if you give them something of good worth, they go, wow, I might be something better than a garbage can, bag of trash. So it's more than just a backpack. It's having the conversation, breaking bread. In Castaway, he went crazy because he was literally sitting on an island and he was isolated, and he was talking to a ball named Wilson. That's the same thing for any person. We need human interaction. So go talk with them. I mean, they're fascinating. They're literally a history book, like a live history book. So just talk to them. It's not like lame or it's going to be boring. Trust me, you're going to hear some really cool stuff if you talk to a vet.
Oh, I believe you. So much value there. And Nick, I know you have so many ideas of what Washington can do better. You didn't even get to touch on them tonight. I have a sneaky feeling that we might be talking about that specifically in the future, but we'll see about that soon. But tell us your one thing or two things that you want people to do.
Yes, the answer to that is scream and shout to your elected officials, right? If you live in Bergen County or Congressional District 5, Josh Gottheimer's field director's phone number is 201-389-1100. He's at 65 Harristown Road in Glen Rock. That's the office. I encourage you to make a phone call or go to that office or the phones and offices of any of the people who represent you, and ask them why 70 people died. 70 elderly veterans died in our 3 veteran homes when there were alternatives and options. And if they tell you that that's not their department, that that's a state issue, or if the state people tell you it's a federal issue, tell them that in the Marine Corps, those who are leaders are responsible for everything that they do and they fail to do. And it's incumbent on them to be successful and to make sure that those things don't happen.
I love it. Wow, Nick, powerful. I love it. Can't wait to talk to you more about that. Marcela, that's fabulous. Marcela, close us out. Jersey First, you are a board member. You're a big advocate of Jersey First and what they can do for vets. So tell us what Jersey First is going to do, how people can get involved, sign the pledge, all the Jersey First things.
Right. So definitely sign the pledge. And that's a commitment that you're going to help us, right? And that you want to be, that's the first thing that you can do, right? Because the first question is, how do I start? How do I help? Sign the pledge, right? And the pledge is very simple. You are going to stand up for the voiceless. It's a voice for the voiceless. It's that simple. I can sit here to Brett's point and talk for another 5 hours. But I just want to leave with everyone, sign the pledge, log into the website, get involved, sign a volunteer form, reach out to us. And this month, we're running a campaign on doing thank you letters to the veterans, right? Reach out to us. We'll give you the paper that you can decorate. It's that easy. And it takes 5 minutes. We'll distribute them for you. It's very, very simple. And again, with Jersey First and the voice for the voiceless was just a sliver of what we're trying to do across the board, right. Because the voice for the voiceless doesn't end with veterans. It's the law enforcement, it's the children with disabilities, it's getting our kids back in school, right? Because my kids have struggled with that too, which is another segment.
Yes.
But we're involved in all of that, and it's for us to get the people to take control. We, the people, need to control. We are taxpayers, so we elect the officials. We have to make them work for us. We don't work for them. And I think that's what Jersey First is trying to do. Put it back on us, and we control it as a people.
As it should be. I love that. And a perfect way to say it, Marcela. And shout out to Rosemary Becky for starting and championing Jersey First. And I know each of you, of course, know her well and have worked with her. And she is a fan of yours as well. And Alexa, for the purposes of tonight, I'm going to make you an honorary vet. But I just want to say to the 4 of you, not only did you serve our country, and I thank you for that on behalf of this incredible country, but you continue to serve. It seems as though it's something that is in your character and clearly will stay there. So I commend you guys. I honor you on behalf of Jersey First, the state of New Jersey, and all patriots. We thank you so much. We're going to continue to help you guys, support you guys. Everybody watch Jersey First. Go to jerseyfirst.org. You can see it on the ticker. It's first with the number 1. Sign the pledge. Get on the mailing list. See what we're doing. And Backpacks for Life, check it out. It's just an amazing service to our vets. And we will hear more from Nick in the future and everybody else. So guys, thank you for being with us. All right. Have a great night. And to our audience, we will see you guys all next week. Share this show. Everybody should learn what's going on with our vets and how we can help. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.
Good night.